Justin, how you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Good. Glad you could come on. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you guys are thrashing away there for the 500 coming up.
We are. It's busy right now. We're not as busy as normal because with no Daytona testing, but we are. There's a lot of things to do in preparation for Daytona, and even for the upcoming races after that. We have a 3-race West Coast kind of trip between Vegas and Phoenix and California that we're trying to get prepped for as well. So
nice.
Putting new cars together, and we're rolling along.
Okay. Cool. So tell me something, Justin. Your very first memory of the Daytona 500?
Probably, well, in 1989, I believe it was the Daytona 500. I was watching on TV in my living room with my family. I think I was 8 years old at the time. Darrell Waltrip won his first Daytona 500, his only Daytona 500. And I got to say, yeah, that was definitely, it was, it's funny that it was a Daytona 500 race that I remember, but it's probably one of the only races I remember watching as a kid, was that race.
Okay. Now, do you come from a racing background? You watched it with your family, or?
I did. I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina, right, probably 3 miles from the Charlotte Motor Speedway, and we weren't really a racing family, so to speak. We were, I guess we were typical fans where we watched races a lot, and but at the time I had no aspirations of being in racing. Although it's funny, watching that race brings me back, reminds me of, I always used to think that I would somehow be involved in racing at some point because I always loved the sport. But since we weren't involved in, my family wasn't involved in racing, I didn't have any way of knowing how to get there or get into it, but I always just knew that somehow I would be involved in the sport. And ironically, 15 years later, I guess, here I am.
Nice. Well, racing is a kind of world where if you're not involved in it when you're a kid,
sure,
your parents do it or your father raced or something, it's a foreign land to you, and you don't even think about like you can actually work in the industry itself.
Sure, you have no idea how to get into it, where you start, and
right.
And my family wasn't involved in it, so it was like one of those things. It was something I always kind of wanted to do in the back of my mind, but really was never in the foresight, or it's not something I didn't think I even had a chance to do.
Right. So once you started racing in the NASCAR
sure.
world, what was your very first time, or even maybe as a fan, the very first time you were the very first time you went to the Daytona 500?
That would have been in 2005. I started with Hendrick Motorsports in 2004, and 2005 Chad Knaus tapped me to be his engineer, his race engineer. So that was my first time traveling, with the team as a crew member, as part of the team, and it's funny. The first time in Daytona, we ran the Bud Shootout, which is now the Sprint Unlimited, but it was my first time on the box, as an engineer with the race team, and it was exciting and it was nerve-wracking all at the same time. And we actually won that race. It was the very first time I was on the box, and I was with Jimmy Johnson, and we won the Bud Shootout that year, 2005. So that was special. It's a good memory, first time being on the box, and it was. And then we ran the 500 the week after that. Was my first 500. So.
What was your own personal feeling about that, about the 500, and watching it as a kid, and then finally actually being there, not only as a fan, but I mean,
sure,
as an engineer?
Well, it's the race has so much history behind it, and it's a very special place and unique place to be at. And like I said, it goes back to when I was a kid, and there's so many memories of me watching races on TV in that 500, the 1989 500, and just being there and knowing all the races and all the great drivers that have been through that place. And it's very special to go there and race and be a part of that, be a part of the race.
All right, so now that you've had about 9 or 10 years under your belt,
yep,
as going to the track as one of the team members,
sure,
or engineer,
yeah.
How do you look at it now as a crew chief approaching the Daytona 500?
I don't look at it too much differently from a mental aspect. I guess I have a different role in the team, so I'm certainly responsible for different things, and I guess ultimately I'm responsible for everything that happens down there, is being the leader. And mentally it's more, I don't approach it, in some aspects I don't approach it any differently than I ever have, and that's we go down there and do whatever we can to win the race, and we work hard, and we put the best car in the track as we can, and we give Paul the best equipment that we possibly can. And I've always done that as an engineer from a setup aspect, and now I kind of have to do that from all aspects of being a leader. So it's it's exciting to go down there and be the leader and to be that guy that everyone looks up to.
Nice. How do you see it any differently from last year versus this year? Do you think there's added pressure on you because there's no pre-testing for January coming up to the Daytona 500?
No, I don't think there's any added pressure. I mean, certainly you go down there, sometimes going to Daytona and testing in January, you kind of work out some of the bugs of the start of a season and get the new guys acclimated and you have new equipment and stuff you want to get worked out. So we won't have a chance to do that, but we have tested some here in the off season, and we've kind of got some of that out of the way. And but as far as, I don't think there's any added pressure. I mean, certainly as a leader, ultimately we want to win the race and I want to do my best. So there's always pressure there to perform. But I've always had that pressure, even as an engineer, as a shock specialist, or whatever position I went to the track in. I always wanted to do my job and do it the best I could, and not not try not to fail in any way. So but being as a leader, you do it. You have a different role. So I'm going to do the job I can and do the best I can at the job, and we'll go try to win the race.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Justin Alexander. Speaking like a true engineer.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool, calm, and collective. Justin Alexander, the crew chief of Paul Menard's 27 car.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Justin Alexander. I'm a crew chief on the number 27 Menards Chevrolet. Now that you've heard my first story of the 500, I want to hear your story. #MyFirst500.